Next panel with the topic of advanced technologies in smart cities. And for that, I want to call in on stage Head of Business Development, Technology and IoT Solution from Ericsson Middle East and Africa, Mr. Amar Sabag. Director IoT and Blockchain Solutions, EITC, Mr. Jose Fernandez. Solutions Practice Lead for Middle East and Northern Africa, Consensus, Mr. Rami Malouf. Chief Executive Officer of Strategic Affairs, Department of Economic Development in Dubai, Mr. Mohammed El Shail. And Chief Executive Officer of Land 32, Mr. Daniel Saliba. And to moderate our panel discussion for this afternoon, please welcome on stage Manager, TMT and Digital, Middle East Strategy, Mr. Imad Atwi.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us here. I know we're the panel that's separating you from lunch, so we'll make that as interesting as possible. The topic of this panel is advanced technologies in smart cities. And I think one of the biggest impact topics in technology is smart cities. If we take a look at the numbers, more than 1.5 million people are actually moving into urban places every week worldwide. So that's the equivalent of a new smart city. Half of the global GDP is actually generated from the largest 300 metropolitan areas globally. And by next year, around $1 trillion will actually be spent on smart cities globally. So with that in mind, there's a lot of technologies that are surrounding us that are enabling smart cities and we'll hear from 5G, IoT, blockchain, cognitive solutions, and there's a lot much more. Hopefully, we agree that the ultimate goal of any smart city is to really improve the quality of life for the residents, for the corporates, for all the constituents of a smart city. With that in mind, and with all the technologies that are in place, what we want to tackle now is basically what is the notion of a smart city? So how do we define a smart city? What are the key enabling technologies, and how do they actually enable the smart city perspective? What are the opportunities and the underlying challenges that actually underpins some of the key technologies on that front? And what is actually the future of the advanced technologies in smart cities? So with that in mind, I would like to start with you, Mohammed. So basically, governments globally have enabled and built smart cities globally. And they've tried to advance their thinking on smart cities. How do you define from your perspective and from Dubai's perspective as well, the notion of a smart city? What are the key pillars of that smart city, and how Dubai is actually building towards that vision?
Thank you very much, Imad, and thank you very much for inviting me to be one of the panel speakers in here. And I think I'm the least technologically aware from the panelists in here. I'll try to stay in my shaded area, which is the government side, but I'll try to shed light on what the government of Dubai and the United Arab Emirates is doing with the smart city. Before I go there, and rightly you mentioned in here the definition of smart city. Now, the question before the definition of smart city, is a smart city, is it a new concept, or it's an old concept? And many people might say new or old. And once you ask somebody who said it's old concept, you ask him how old is it, he might tell you 100, 200, or 300 years old. Well, actually, smart living is not a new notion. It was there since the human being in the cave to create a convenient lifestyle for them, using any technological breakthroughs that they created to make their life better. And one of the technologies that was created in the olden days, those days, is a knife. A knife is a technology, a piece of technology that human creativity came up with in order for them to do something that they can't do it with their bare hand or with their teeth. So they've created that from stones, and then it developed. From that time until today, we're using the same technology, by the way, but the only difference is the material. Similarly, when you look at Rome, for example, they've used a different technology. They've used a technology that making Rome as a city is convenient to live in and to host around 500,000 population at that time. And they've used aqueduct. They were taking water all the way 2,500 kilometers away from Rome to provide the city with that thing. And there are many and many, many examples. Today is no different. Dubai is no different. Instead of being in cave, now we are in different city, metropolitan city. So in those cities, they require also a convenience. So smart is not really a proper definition, but because who initiated this movement is the IT sector, you guys. And that's why you called it smart. But it's better to be called convenient living city. Now, I told you, Imad, in the phone, if I grab a mic, it will be very difficult for me to leave it. So please stop me when my time finishes. Please.
I'll be there.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, I will try to be very fast in here because I've got so many things to condense it in a very few minutes. First of all, what Dubai government is doing in smart city, smart living. Dubai smart government is one of the initiatives for the city to connect government citizens with you guys, with IT. Now, you have one side of the equation. You have the technology infrastructure, and you called it network, which is wrong. The network has to be covering everybody in that society. So a network is a technology, government, tourist, and resident. The government of Dubai is making that, trying to make that canvas of the city very appealing by introducing new laws, new policies, new regulations. Now, then later on, you guys told us, well, your infrastructure is not good enough. Your infrastructure, Dubai, you told us, Dubai looks like Ferrari design with Hyundai engine. So guys, you need to change that engine to match up with the Ferrari look like. So then we came up with engagement with Do. Do built the, supposed to be building the infrastructure for us, the engine for the Ferrari. But in a few years, Do will run back to us and saying, guys, the engine that we created for you is not capable enough to take the Lamborghini from point A to point B. And just now, Mr. Freiduni mentioned that data has been accumulated. With the amount of data that we have, we in the government of Dubai don't think that the existing infrastructure will be capable enough to take the Lamborghini from point 1 to point B. So that today we are thinking of two more things. And those two more things, I think you've mentioned them in here yesterday and today. I'm not sure because I wasn't here. So one of them is high performance computer requirements for a city. Number two is quantum computer. And the reason why I'm mentioning those two tools of the IT technologies is because when you have more than 50 to 100 billion connected devices, and basically we will be also devices in that network, and we will be connected. By the way, we will not be connected by one device. We might have a contact lens, we might have a watch, we might have a smart clothing, we might have so many things. So a person himself will be a data storage moving around. And that's why advanced technologies now, they are looking at the neurocomputer. IBM is looking at it, HP is looking at it, and other Google is looking at it. Why is that? Is because when a person becoming a data center moving, they have DNA and they have cells. And if I ask a question for everyone, where do we store our data? And most of you, not all of you, will say we store it in the brain. This information, if you have it, is false. We store information in every piece, in every cell in our body. We store it in our brain, we store it in our skin, we store it in our heart. And there are lots of experiments happen. A heart transplant happened in the last 10 years. A person who was donated a heart, was living a lifestyle, and after that period of transportation, he now becoming a different person, similar to the person who donated the heart to him. So that gives the scientists ability that to create something in ourselves, which will be the edge. So the device at the edge, instead of having a camera which has all the AI in the edge, you will have a person on edge too in the future. By collecting such data, that amount of data, we will require something like a Ferrari, but with a four-wheel drive engine, which you require at that time high-performance computers or quantum computers, and those two together can work along the side with the existing infrastructure to leverage on whatever available in here. And that's why government of Dubai now, especially in the economic department, yesterday, the day before, we started with the EY, an exercise called the most futuristic 5 themes that affecting Dubai. One of them is retail and retail. And 2 days ago, we were at the Wave Lab, Wave Speed, but I think they call it, the EY. Next month, we have future of education and future of medicine. And Feb, we will have quantum computer and sharing economy.
Okay. And with all these technologies, what will it enable the government to achieve? Is it in better decision making? Is it in better sort of governance? What are you hoping to achieve from all these sort of super computing capabilities, the decentralized data governance, and all these areas?
With the problem is with the amount of technology changes happening. So blockchain 2 years ago was really something nobody knows about it. And today is already talking about it. Today, nobody knows about what's a quantum computer. And in 2 years' time, everybody will talk about quantum computer. What Dubai government is looking to achieve is to enable the citizen, the residents, with knowledge and information that when this tsunami wave is coming, next tsunami wave is coming, the citizens and the residents will not be taken by surprise. So that's why we said one of the sessions that we are taking next month is future of education, building capacity, skills development. Now the question will be, do we still need to go through the similar educational system, or do we need to change it? We don't know. But in our opinion, through our studies, we have to change it. Otherwise, we are killing lots of brains that requires to fuel this.
Definitely. And
if I may add something on top of that, I think the smart city concept is an evolving concept based on much more than just technology. Actually, a city becomes smart based on the strong collaboration between all stakeholders the key stakeholders of the city, which are the society, the enterprise, government, and academia, working together towards a common goal, which is improving the quality of life of the citizens, which is happening in Dubai, right? Through the usage of those technologies you're mentioning. But at the end is the collaboration, which is the key.
Absolutely, and this is where it's bringing a lot of paradigm shifts.
Just one second. I mentioned, thank you very much for bringing this because it reminded me of something. Last month, we've started with the universities, private sector, and government in something called Triple Helix. So Triple Helix are from government, private sector, and government looking at a problem from different angles to come up with a better solution. You cannot get a better solution, but at least a solution that will help in moving from point A to point B.
And definitely there's a lot of transformation that's happening within the government, from structure, from the way that the vision that they're building for the
I think the most important question to Mohammed is, when can we get that Lamborghini so we can take it to the desert?
I can't hear you.
When can we get that Lamborghini to take it to the desert?
Well, this is an excellent question. When are we getting that Lamborghini? Lamborghini is there already, but the problem is with the engine. So us as a government, we created this for you. We've created policies, we've created rules, regulation, paperless, for example, strategies out, blockchain strategies out now. Government is more keen and lenient now when it comes to fintechs, when it comes to SMEs or small ideas. But the problem is the designer of the engines are you guys. Every time when we create something for you, and you know how long it takes us to create a strategy and then take buy-in from the government, His Highness, and then he deploys it. It takes huge effort from us. And suddenly, after we created that, and very nicely done from you guys, and you then 1 year later say, guys, leave the blockchain now. We have something else in here. So now we need to redo the whole thing. So the Lamborghini is there. But the designer of the engine is really not sure what is happening in the future, because you are, if you ask me about the economy, I can tell you with technology and the policy, how the economy will look like in 3 years. Not fully, but how it will look like. But when you come to an IT professional, and when you ask him, how is the IT is going to evolve in the coming 3 years? The answer either or. Either he will say, I don't know, this is an honest person. I like this person. Or he will tell you that, yeah, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and that will happen. And now for us as strategists, we need to follow you guys because you know the bread and butter of your business. We don't know it. We can't claim that we understand it all. You understand and you tell us, and then we take that input. We try to have some initiatives and then push policies and regulations towards achieving your goal, which you told me about it. And that's a problem.
And this is where my next question to one of the key engines behind all these technologies, also to Ammar, with 20 billion devices connected by 2020, with the 5G rollout that's happening globally. What are the importance of IoT?
See, I told you guys, if I take the mic, I will not leave it. So you just give me 1 second, just 1 second, because you always keep reminding me you're doing something. Now, about 5G, for example, 5G. Now, in one of our studies with the Frost and Sullivan, we've looked at the future of medicine. And we've looked at it from 3 brackets, 0 to 5, 5 to 15, 15 to 25, and 25 onwards. Now, RoboDoctor, for example, we looked at it, and we looked at the entire ecosystem for RoboDoctor. When it comes to education system, because after 7 years, you'll become a doctor, right? Once you get your certificate as a physician, the day you take it, the same day it's expired already. Why? AI is jumping into the picture. RoboDoctor is coming into the picture. For example, 5G, Mr. Freidouni was talking about, and you just referred it to it. Through that, through our study, we figured out why we cannot do a RoboDoctor today. Although lots of ecosystems available today is because of 5G technology. And the difference, I came to know through you guys, the difference between 4G and 5G is the speed. And what's the speed is? It is huge speed, more than 400 times. So for example, if I am running a RoboDoctor, I am doing operation here in Dubai, and the doctor is in the UK. If he presses the command, if everything is good, everything is perfect, the command will require 0.45 milliseconds to reach the robot here to action that command. Whereas 5G is 0.05, 0.05, which is almost instant. So by having a better network of 5G, that will enable other technologies and will change the entire canvas of the society.
Absolutely.
I'm really sorry for that.
No, you're right.
Take the mic from him. Take the mic.
Yeah, we'll switch it up.
No, thank you, Ahmed, Muhammad. No, you are right. I mean, 5G, what will galvanize the smart city transformation? I agree with you, smart city started a long time ago, but the real true smart city is coming with Internet of Things, connecting things. Before 5G came, which is really coming this quarter, before that, we had multiple technologies, Sigfox, LoRa, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and stuff. Because of the battery life, because of the coverage. Now with the 5G, 5G is very superior. You will have a 20 gig speed per second for every device. You could have 1 million connected devices in a square kilometers. Low latency, incredibly low latency. So, and the quality of network slicing. I like the term that was used yesterday. It's service slicing. So you could have critical service as highest priority as a quality of service. So what's going to happen is this 5G, which will start in UAE by this quarter, and it will really change everything with the smart cities. It will really move it to the next level because the connectivity is the foundation of a smart city. You connect, you collect the data, and then you visualize the data, and then you build the use cases. So it's part of the engine that Muhammad was talking about, but there are more on it, and there are some more concerns on it, so we can continue.
One question is, with all the data that's being combined, how do you sort of manage that data, that transmission to data, to the other engines, to the different parts? How is it sort of governed from that perspective?
You have the high, you have autonomous vehicle requiring really 0.1 millisecond response time. The advanced technologies like industrial, healthcare, and mining and oil and gas, all critical connectivity that they really, really need zero response time. And a lot of the information are on the cloud. So that's why the combination of connecting things, superior speed, and the cloud evolution will have a massive change in our lives.
And do you see the same sort of rollout of smart cities and that momentum of smart cities and the enabling technologies regionally the same as being what's being faced globally from a technology perspective? Or are there paradigm differences?
I mean, regionally, smart cities are evolving individually. It's not becoming a country or becoming a region. It's cities. And we looked with Arthur D. Little about categorizing smart cities. And what we saw, there is maturity level of smart city. You have cities who are doing marketing. You have cities who are doing proof of concept. You have cities who are doing vertical solution. And you have cities who are doing really horizontal. So marketing is no money, no vision, just to be on the roadmap. So that's fine. The other one was the POCs. A lot of POCs just to understand. Again, lack of vision and lack of strategy. Vertical, a lot of Europe is moving vertical, and Latin America, they'll want to do smart parking, they want to do smart lighting, fine. But there is no end-to-end vision. So the cities, and those cities are Barcelona, Sweden, and London. You come to the cities who are looking horizontal, who are serious about transforming the whole city to a smart, sustainable city. And those are Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Dallas, city of Dallas. And those are individual, regardless of really what they are doing. And they have the vision, the strategy, the political, and the buy-in from every government entity, including DED. And this is, if they have the vision, we, technology vendors and operators and other aspects of security and stuff, we can work very easily with that.
And this is where it's interesting because in most of the cities and the smart cities globally and regionally, telcos are venturing into these emerging technologies and advanced technologies. So my question to you, Jose, is what is the role of telcos? And I know we've just had a sort of a keynote discussion from Mr. Farid on that topic. What is DO sort of tackling in that realm, and what is really the role of telcos across that different, let's say, stack or vertical stack of smart cities?
Correct. At the end, smart city relies on connectivity, right? So today, the digital world has more transactions than the actual physical world, creating this tsunami of data. This is growing day by day. Now, telcos need to be the enablers of those new services, not only by putting in place the right infrastructure, but also by leveraging the close relationship that we have with our customers, okay? Now, when you look into specific technologies like blockchain, AI, and so on, again, we do have the infrastructure that is needed for those technologies to scale. We do have the experience and the knowledge to deal with large amount of data, guaranteeing the right level of privacy, because that's our core business, right? But the truth is, we are not blockchain experts. We are not AI experts. So what we do is we partner with companies like Consensus, that have those expertise in order to bring a best-in-class solution into the market. One example of the role, again, it was mentioned previously, but is the strategic partnership that we have with Smart Dubai government, not only by developing but operating the Smart Dubai platform, Dubai Pulse, which is the digital backbone of the city of Dubai, moving the city from these silos of information into the horizontal and fully integrated city, right? And at the end, I think all ties up in one of the messages that Mr. Osman Sultan highlighted this morning, is that telcos will have a crucial role in this innovation journey, making sure that we don't lose humanity in the process, and making sure that this relationship with the client is still there, the relationship with the citizens is there, because at the end, we need to remember that technology is only the enabler, right? And at the center of any smart city or any smart initiative itself needs to be the people and the citizens. So,
absolutely. And in that perspective, what are you focusing on in terms of sort of the key specific sectors, or is it focusing on just really the horizontal technologies to enable any of the specific sectors, especially that some of the sectors require really specific, whether latency requirements, whether technology requirements, whether decentralization requirements. Are there any focus industries or sectors that you feel that are the most prominent in a smart city where telcos are
Correct.
are entering.
Now, if you think about which sectors are going to be the most impacted by smart city, by smart city initiatives or blockchain or AI, I think it's hard for everyone to think one sector or industry that's either not too excited or scared of what's going to happen with them, because it's really changing the rules of the game. And I think the real question is which one will go first, right? And which one will be able to unlock the value of those technologies? And that's kind of our role. We want to be the enablers of that transformation. We want to give the tools to government entities and to private companies to be able to play that game through the platform, through the different technologies that we're working with our partners, and to make this smart city concept a reality. So.
Okay. And maybe one of the key technologies that has been hailed as one of the key enablers across different verticals, different horizontals in a smart city is blockchain. And my question to you, Rami, is basically what is the key role of blockchain in enabling that smart city, especially that some of the forecasts on spending on blockchain is forecasted to reach around $3 trillion by 2030. So there's a huge potential, but what really is the specific use cases or the positioning of blockchain within the smart city aspect?
Sure. So we can go for hours discussing the potential of blockchain and also the short-term feasibility of applying blockchain and extracting the value of blockchain. I'll try to simplify it in as few words as possible. I'd like to look at the value of blockchain from the lens of the different layers within the smart city. So you have the physical infrastructure layer. That's your roads, your cars, your fiber network, your buildings, your 5G sites, your data centers. Then there's the physical digital interface. So you're talking about connected devices, smartphones, sensors. And then there's the digital enablement platforms. So AI, blockchain could be one of them here as well, the IoT platforms. And all of this is what I call the city operating system, so that they should be cohesive in a way that act as a single operating system for the city that enable new and innovative applications and services delivered to the different constituents within that city. And blockchain could play a role across all layers within the smart city. So and I would look at blockchain from three different classes of value, if I can put it that way. So the first one is acting as a proof of existence and provenance to enable frictionless services and journeys for citizens. So we're talking about more efficient, better experiences in delivering public services. And this is usually cumbersome processes because they entail different stakeholders along that value chain that don't necessarily trust each other. They only trust the next stakeholder in that value chain. And a simple example here is around someone coming from Lebanon, let's say, trying to apply for a work visa in the UAE. They would need to show their university diploma that they got from Lebanon. However, immigration in the UAE, they don't trust necessarily that university in Lebanon. They only trust the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the UAE. And then they would ask that person, go get that stamped from the university, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ministry of Foreign Affairs only trusts the UAE embassy in Lebanon. The UAE embassy only trusts the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Lebanon. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs only trusts the Ministry of Education. So you can imagine, because of that trust gap, that person ends up going through that cumbersome process at the end to just prove to the immigration that this is actually the right university diploma. What blockchain can help, how blockchain can help here is circumvent that process, is create a trust anchor, where as soon as you graduate from that university, you can stamp and post your diploma on the blockchain. And then when you apply, that could be 10 years ago. And then when you apply for a job today, you just need to show that diploma and then get that validation done through the blockchain. The second class of value for blockchain is around enabling a secure and interoperability communications within the different devices in that physical digital interface layer that we talked about. So this allows multiple devices within the IoT sphere of that smart city that are not necessarily in the same ecosystem, but being able to securely communicate with each other by using the blockchain to identify the device, make sure that the device is authentic, and to complete secure transactions between different devices. And the third class of value for blockchain is in rethinking new agile governance and economic models through what we call the token economy. So I'm not necessarily going to go into that detail here, but essentially what this does is, and this plays across also potentially the physical infrastructure layer of the smart city. But essentially the token economy allows, through automated incentive models, allows actors within a governance ecosystem to act properly as actors in that ecosystem through incentive models that are created and managed through tokens. And this allows for assets, for instance, infrastructure assets like roads or a fiber network to be represented, for instance, digitally on a blockchain. And then through incentive models, different actors within that ecosystem would have the incentive to act properly in that ecosystem. So it's effectively trying to rethink how citizens potentially can interface and can engage with the government. So new governance models for citizen engagement. This also allows for new ways of capital formation. So when you're digitizing assets, you're allowing for a potentially fractional ownership, and this is something that Daniel could potentially add more flavor to. But allowing fractional ownership and new ways of capital formation in large infrastructure projects that usually are either driven by government spending or very complex public-private partnerships. So tokenizing that kind of process allows for faster participation from the private sector, institutional investors, or citizens in that capital formation.
What's very important that you mentioned is interoperability, and that is crucial in blockchain world, as you know. I don't know to what extent you see you're with consensus, so you guys are Ethereum. So how interoperable each blockchain that you know of today is, and if they are not, then are we not just heading for a cliff? Because at the end of the day, if the government is using one blockchain and a different government department using another blockchain, and the Abu Dhabi government using a third one, are they able to interoperate between each other? From your point of view, do you think that is possible with, from a Ethereum point of view, since you guys focused on that?
Yes, so the short answer is at the current point in time, the different protocols that enable blockchain are not interoperable, but you have a large community across the different foundations or different communities across Hyperledger Fabric, Ethereum, EOS, Affinity, and others working together against a common goal of interoperability. Because the true value of blockchain cannot be extracted unless you have that interoperability. And lots of work needs to be put around standards, open standards.
Right.
And I don't necessarily want for blockchain to be a main technology to be discussed here, but if you try to do an analogy with how the internet started, and you had different protocols around TCP/IP and UDP and others that enable devices through a common network to talk to each other. The value of internet is that ultimately it converges towards the TCP/IP protocol that is the core protocol that enables that communication. At some point, yes, convergence needs to happen, and the Ethereum Foundation is working at also using Ethereum as the network of networks. So other side chains could run on other protocols, but be anchored on Ethereum, and then you would have that kind of interoperability.
And perhaps maybe moving specifically into one of the use cases of blockchain, which is the most fundamental asset in any smart city, but probably the least disrupted of all, is land. And this is where my question to you, Daniel, is what are you doing to disrupt that sort of asset or fundamental asset in a smart city with Land 32, and how would it actually perform within the smart city concept?
Yeah, it's so interesting because when we talk about smart cities, we tend to, I haven't heard from today's panels or yesterday's discussion, not even once a mention of land, not even considered. But what brings us together in a city or today or since the revolution of the agricultural revolution is land. Without land, it is the most important physical asset that we've ever had, we've ever possessed. And one of the most important natural resources around the world, yet it's not integrated in the financial market seamlessly. And that by itself makes land, given that it's a real estate asset, very inefficient market and very illiquid. So not allowing individuals living in a community like you and me and ordinary people to invest in land because it's a high barrier to entry. You can't, participate in what the MR is doing through co-owning land with them because you don't have that equity check. And that creates a lot of efficiencies and exclude a lot of people from the common work together that we've heard about on different panels, talking about people need to work together and towards reaching a better future. And then we need to keep in consideration something that I heard from Rami and Imad yourself. You said very important. Throughout the whole concept of smart city, there's one thing that is probably the most crucial element, in my opinion. We always need to be people-focused. It has to be people-focused. So it doesn't matter how smart the technology that people are using. If it is not helping humanity, then forget about it. What's the point? So we can't bring a technology that was invented about 10 years ago and kind of push it into a smart city just because we invented it. We don't want to lose that time that we invented it. It has to be, what do people need? And when I think about what are the most important elements of us, if you look at the physiological need, we need land, we need a home, and we need food that comes from land, which is agriculture. And there's so much value in land that is unlocked. If we continue this way, we're not necessarily benefiting from land and utilizing it without compromising it. So what we did, we said, and I come from a commercial real estate background, so I partnered with a TOTA network, which is a TOTA protocol that actually is on a network level that allows interoperability, which is why I asked you that question. And what we do, we take portions of land, very small divisions of land, and we create cryptographic representation of those, put them on that scalable, efficient, secure protocol. And what that does to very valuable land, which we all value without any question, it is an extremely valuable asset. So it's a store of value. Now it is cryptographically represented, so it becomes a medium of exchange. And therefore allowing landowners, like government, especially governments who own a lot of land on behalf of people, to utilize that land to the advantage of people in the city. At the same time, it allows participants like you and me to potentially support a project, a school or university that is on the system, and financially support it through participating into the funding of it. So we actually contribute to creating wealth, but we benefit from it. And that is the most important part of what we're doing, is throughout the entire life cycle of the development, what happens today is that I invest $20,000 or $100,000, it gets locked until there's an event capital and the business is sold or the real estate is sold, I get my money back. What we're enabling here is that during this entire life cycle of a real estate development or of a farm development or whatever the case may be, any money that went into the system or was created through that asset back, which is land, is sitting as a medium of exchange. It's a unit that is liquid, so it is exchangeable with no friction whatsoever because we're sitting on that layer. It's interoperable, so therefore what happens is you're able to utilize existing asset, which is real estate, land, and create that medium of exchange, which is more superior to any other medium of exchange, in my opinion, allow people to create and benefit from the wealth creation of real estate, but at the same time, keep that currency circulating so that people can use it for buying other products or services. So going back to smart cities, it is so important for us to keep in mind that let's stay at people's focus, make sure what do they need the most, and how are we making sure that they are going into social mobility upwards. You know, the monetary promise, really, the money promise is social mobility and helps us to form societies. And if we have a monetary system that extracts value from citizens, talking about smart cities, then what's the point? So that technology, which is money, needs to evolve into a technology that keeps the wealth within the society. And the technology that I'm talking about uses real estate, which is land. It makes it into a medium of exchange, frictionless, on a secure, scalable system, and allowing transaction between each other without having that extraction of wealth from societies to a third-party intermediary sitting in Australia or China.
Definitely, and there's a lot of opportunities in unlocking this, this valuable asset. Before maybe taking, I know the time is almost up, before taking maybe one question or two questions from the audience, just a quick round of maybe half-a-minute intervention of where do you see the future of half a minute?
I'll try my best in half a minute.
Where do you see the future of smart cities? What will we be talking about in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of technology?
Maybe you should start this way, otherwise
yeah,
you
yeah.
get
it's easier to
I'm
get
joking.
off
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, we are also in the economic department studying digital twinning for the city. And we believe that once we are getting into that digital twinning of the city, the GDP of each city will be either double, triple, or quadruple. And the reason for that is lots of opportunity will be there. E-commerce will be run on there. Now, you've heard of Second Life. Second Life is already a live concept and it's available, so lots of transactions are happening there. Dubai Smart Office has recently, with the TRA, created the digital signing, which is UAE Pass, and they have already digital identity. So the main two things that you require to create the digital twinning is already there, so the rest is going. The last thing before I move, I still have a half minute, is when you talk about the cities, how are we going to use? Now, still you are talking about the technologies, talking about the network. In my opinion, in the coming 15 or 20 years, you will hear something called cloud on planets or clouds on asteroids, using quantum mechanics and using the fabric of space, so that you will store all of your data not on Earth. It will be stored somewhere else because it will be more efficient and more secured, storing it there. It's a new chapter. We can discuss about it sometime later in the future, but half a minute is a half a minute.
Absolutely.
Well, I think with decentralized, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
With decentralized platform that we're talking about, which is the blockchain, you allow each independent computer, mobile phone, TV, fridge, as long as it has the capacity to run a little bit of automation, and you can use that whenever you need, as long as it is on an efficient and secure system, okay? So that not every transaction is going to cost $7. So that's very important. So you don't need to go to another universe to create that efficiency with a decentralized structure.
The amount of data later on will be really very huge. And just Google something called the US Universe Army. So they are creating an army in US now, pertaining that in the coming future, they will store everything outside the globe. And this is just to protect the identity of the globe, because you have tsunamis, you have so many climate problems are coming. So you need to store your data or the humanity data somewhere
We'll
else.
definitely have a separate session on that specifically.
All right, got it.
Mark, please, any final thoughts?
Let's come back to Earth. I mean, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, not I think, it's happening really. You will have autonomous vehicle for the last mile. So the feeders, whether for logistics, whether for delivery. Cashless society, whether it's a cryptocurrency or mobile wallets. The malls will transform to be community centers. Mm-hmm. You do your government work, you eat and drink and exercise. And the last thing is government will become smaller. With the e-government, it was first step, but I think with the blockchain and stuff, it will minimize the role of government. And the new generation, the millennials, are totally aligned with this, that they are thinking too much government interference, we can manage it ourselves, just guide us, regulators, regulations, and policies. Thanks.
Okay. So when you think about the future of smart cities and this kind of technology, even though the concept of smart city has evolved clearly in the last couple of years, and those technologies are moving in the right direction, blockchain, AI, and so on, I think we're still really far away from to actually be able to see the implications and the impact it's going to have on our life. I mean, we can think about Elon Musk colony in Mars, we can think about the flying cars, sure, we can do that, but I think it's going to be completely different, to be honest. I think there's still a big gap between the skills and talent that is required in companies and governments to close the loop. I think it's still a gap in the frameworks and standards. We're working towards that direction, but still a long way to go. If you ask me about the future I'm not going to say flying cars or anything like that. What I'm going to say is I would like to see all these initiatives not being only as hype, as independent silos, as I said before, but instead of kind of like the foundation for any kind of public service or any kind of action that governments and companies give to the citizens of any city. So,
Rami?
Yeah, on point, I have to agree with what Jose said in terms of if we're looking at a time frame of 5 to 10 years. Of course, looking at 30 years ahead, we never know where we land. What's practical and pragmatic is making sure that all stakeholders involved are working together and collaborating and really extracting or understanding where the value lies from these emerging technologies. One point I'd like to make is that even though AI, blockchain, IoT, others are classified as emerging technologies, within that classification, you have varying levels of maturity as well. So you need to really understand what you're trying to achieve in the short term, and in smart cities, time frame short term is 5 to 10 years. So what are you trying to achieve, and how can these emerging technologies help you get there? And it's really important to understand the uniqueness of each smart city. So you need to pick the technologies depending on their maturity for sure, but most importantly, the ones that help you achieve the target socioeconomic political construct of that smart city that you're trying to achieve. And it's beyond technology itself. It's understanding how the city will operate.
Excellent. Daniel, any final thoughts?
I think I'd like to address the panels and the audience in my 2 minutes. And there's a very important message here, which is in today's talking about smart cities, interconnectivities, your data, your children's data is accessible to so many parties. We have to be very careful about two very important things. One is exploitation of people, of their data, of anything that has to do with you as a person. And the second is extraction of wealth from you as a citizen from your smart city. So as all of this becomes automated, as some government entities will have much more information about you, the government can be great. Sometimes in other parts of the world, it might not. As companies will have a lot of information about you, you need to make sure that it is in a decentralized governance setting so that there's no one individual at the back office of that company making a bad judgment and making a decision that's going to impact your life terribly. In addition, you want to make sure that all of these communications happening between people and the transactions are frictionless as much as possible so that there's no third parties coming from anywhere around the world extracting wealth from every transaction that is going to happen on our smart grid. Yep. And that, I think that's very important.
Excellent. Maybe one question from the audience, please.
It's a small comment. Thank you very much. It's a small comment I would like to share. It's a sort of a strategic leadership message. As we start to see the rollout of verticals in this region, there's two things to take away. One, the start of intranet of things realization. That's one message. Intranet of things realization, because these verticals kick the intranet concept. The second message is we still have a way long, a lead time, probably 2 to 3 years, to fully realize internet, not intranet, internet of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was there a
one
question?
No, it wasn't a question.
Comments.
Yeah,
Comment.
one,
Oh, okay.
just one question.
Phenomenal comment by Mohammed Chad al-Saadi regarding the extraterrestrial storage. I'm familiar with that. And the cost can be much lower, but again, perhaps you want to watch out for extraction of wealth. So my question is to Rami Malouf, who works for Consensus. Are you familiar that Consensus depends on Ethereum that extracts wealth from users and calculated about $3.4 billion this year alone on Ethereum using miners that are sitting in China and users that could be in Dubai?
I prefer if the question is focused on smart cities. That's the topic of the discussion. So I don't see how
I'm
that
sorry.
question is relevant for that particular topic.
I'm sorry, it's about smart cities from the perspective of extraction of wealth from smart cities. I know that Consensus, they hire phenomenal people like yourself to perhaps exploit smart cities and get the wealth out of the smart cities into other places that they are not necessarily in those smart cities. Using terminologies such as blockchain that can be phenomenal for the smart city, but yet systems that extract wealth from those smart cities into other areas. And that's why I'm asking, because chances are you're not familiar with the fact.
If I can chime in here, I just met Rami, amazing guy. He happened to just join Consensus, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to answer such a question.
If I can just, the only answer I'll give to that question is, and I won't comment on Ether particularly, but Ether and others are protocol tokens. They are the engine behind keeping the Ethereum network up and running, and it's these public blockchains like Ethereum that will be used in the future to enable any kind of decentralized application, whether in smart cities or in the context of particular point solutions.
Perfect. So thank you all very much. I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists for their insights. And I think it's important to see how in a smart city, all the constituents or the different parties must sort of work together jointly, from governments to service providers to telcos to startups and to platform enablers. And thank you once again for being here, and enjoy the rest of your program. Thank you.
Thank you.